day, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Cutting Through the Noise, 3 Tech Trends to Embrace in 2018, brought to you by Stay in Touch, Room Checking, and Arrivado. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. I'm your host, Frigola, and I'm joined by my panel today. First up is founder and CEO of Stay in Touch, Yas Shop. Yas has over 20 years of experience in hotel software technology. He began Stay in Touch with a vision of reinventing the hotel PMS technology, making it simple, mobile, and transitioning the software to the cloud. Prior to Stay in Touch, Yas spent 17 years at Microsystems, now Oracle Hospitality, as a senior vice president in charge of global product development and strategy for the lodging and e-commerce divisions. During his tenure, Micro's hospitality products became the global market leader, growing the company's revenues from less than $300 million to $1.1 billion. Joining us from Room Checking is CEO Jonathan Weissman, an inventor, entrepreneur, and hospitality professor. Jonathan is a creator of multiple technologies and recipient of the 2010 CES Innovation Award. He is widely recognized for his ability to recognize, anticipate, and articulate how information technology would transform the hotel industry. And rounding out our panel is co-founder of Arrivado, Alonso Franco. In 2008, Alonso quit his investment banking job to start a hospitality business. Pirawana Hostel Cusco has been considered the third best large hostel as awarded by Hostel World. After learning about the hotel's front desk experience and the hospitality business overall, Alonso decided to co-found Arrivado. As it stands, Arrivado Neighborhood Guide content is the only online platform giving a voice to hotels as local hosts while bridging the current limitations between hotels and modern guests. All right, time to run through the agenda, and we will get started. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing how open APIs can assist hotels in driving revenue and providing exceptional service, how mobile applications are transforming the hospitality industry and streamlining operations, and the impact of leveraging content to create local host profiles. Before we turn it over to our presenters, I want to first give my audience a chance to participate right off the bat with 2 audience poll questions. The first being, what factor do you consider most when investing in any new technology solutions? Select one of the following: ease of use, price, integrations, support, reliability, or other. Give you guys about 20 seconds, and then I'll launch the results. All right, about 10 more seconds here. I'm closing the poll now and sharing the results. What factors do you consider most when investing in new technology solutions? 60% of you say integrations, 20% say support and reliability, another 20% say ease of use. So it looks like far and away everyone is concerned with integrations here, and we will touch on that and more with our first presenter, Yas Shop. And I'm going to hide and launch the second poll. Oh no. When do you typically research or consider new technologies? Q1, 2, 3, 4, or year-round? Give you guys about 20 seconds here. Ten more seconds, and we'll move on. All right, I'm closing the poll now and sharing the results. When you typically research or consider new technologies, looks like the majority of you say year-round, 27% say Q1 or Q4, and then 9% say Q1. All right, so with that said, we are going to go ahead and start the webinar with our first presenter, Yas Shop. who is going to touch on how open APIs can assist hotels in driving revenue and providing exceptional service. Jas?
Thank you, Free. So I'm going to talk about three topics. First one is APIs, second one is mobile, and the third one is guest engagement created around the PMS. You want to move to the next slide? I think it's pretty interesting that I saw the survey earlier on where 60% of you guys determined that integrations are very important to the technology that you acquire. Definitely when it comes to PMS, it's probably extremely important because that's the heart of the hotel. That's the system that connects to everything else that you have going on in the hotel and helps with collecting the data and move it from one to another system. What's kind of interesting, I noticed that you only had 20% of you thought that ease of use was important, which I found a little bit surprising because I do think that a system that's very easy to use, that kind of is, pick it up and play with it and use it, is probably helping quite a bit with operational efficiencies and reducing the cost of training, which is also, I think, something that, from my point of view, you should be aware of when you buy or select a new system. Make sure it's easy to use, make sure the training is pretty much self-contained, and make sure that really anybody that knows how to operate a hotel can use it from the start without having to spend days in a class, which was kind of the thing in the last 20 years with the older systems that are being around. But getting back to the APIs and integrations, which is definitely the foundation for growth, both for every software vendor as well as for every hotel. As you probably know, there's lots of new technologies coming out on a day-to-day basis. It's very much impossible for one vendor to build everything and do it right and do it well. So what you see happening now in the industry is that because everything is in the cloud and because it's a lot easier to connect things to each other, you see systems sharing APIs with each other and taking over parts of another system. An example, for example, is that we have with Micros, on top of Opera, we can run the overlay, which is using APIs to then enable mobile check-in and mobile check-out to that older PMS system. But also, I think a new PMS system needs to have great APIs so that other things that are out there can be added. I think we'll hear a lot about customer data. We'll hear Jonathan talk about the areas around housekeeping. All of that will only really work if the PMS can validate that information in the correct manner between both systems. So when you look for a new system, any system that you buy, make sure it has open APIs besides, in addition to the additional interfaces that are already in place for years. Make sure that these APIs are easy to access, that vendors can easily connect to them, and that they can really develop easy and quickly applications to that. Because I think when vendors work well together, you get great benefit out of that. It creates operational efficiencies, and definitely because it's all in the cloud today, you as a consumer, as a hotel, don't have to worry about all the technical components anymore. All of that is being done by the cloud providers. Next slide. So I think a modern PMS is sort of the center of the hotel tech ecosystem. There is always, PMS has probably throughout the years become sort of a commodity. It's a system that everybody needs to have. Everybody needs to be able to rely on it. But it seems to be sometimes forgotten when it comes to what's new, what's sexy, what do I want to have, how I can be successful, because it's kind of that old thing that everybody needs to have. I think throughout the years, lots of people have forgotten that, in order for your hotel to fully operate 100% perfect, and in order for you to do revenue management well with, for example, an RMS system such as Duetto or Rainmaker or Ideas, you need to have a strong PMS system that provides the technology and gives you the capabilities to provide the data that these systems need to do their job. Otherwise, you have a revenue system that does not cooperate and does not do what it needs to do. So the PMS, you need to make sure that sits in the cloud, that it again has great integration capabilities, that it's working well, that it's stable, and that it can connect to many different things and provide lots of data to those things to enable those things. Because being able to implement a cloud-based PMS system enables a hotel to instantly connect with guest service applications. Room checking, we'll talk a little bit about that, as well, and so will Arrivado. If that's all connected, there's much more growth and much more opportunity possible for these systems and help to benefit your organization. Next slide. Flexibility, like never before with a modern PMS, is also key. I think in general, software has become much more flexible than it was, like 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago even. It's much easier to add things to it. Things happen on an ongoing basis. PMSs these days, a cloud PMS or any PMS, or any cloud application for that matter, keeps on giving. Every 3 weeks, you have new applications, you have new features available to you that otherwise would have taken you a year or two to upgrade to. But with a mobile cloud PMS, you want to be able to get to the guest away from your front desk or away from your back-end desk and communicate with that guest in their coffee shop or in a meeting room or whatever they're doing. You want to be able to take a group check-in away from the front desk and check them in the banquet room where they have their meetings or where they have their wedding or whatever else is that they're doing. Housekeeping, and Jonathan will go on to that probably a bit more. That used to be a clipboard thing and paperwork, or maybe the phone to set the room status. Today, with a mobile PMS, it can basically be completely done, entirely built into the PMS from a tablet or from a staff member's smartphone. Being able to even check out. So guests, staff members can even check out the guest if they've noticed that the guest already has left the room without having to call or talk to front desk about that. Front desk and operations control are becoming much more seamless if mobile is in place and if an easy-to-use interface is in place. When a UI is easy to use, your staff does not have to look at the screen that much. The steps to take to check in or out somebody are obviously much faster, much quicker, so there's much more interaction possible with the guest that's standing at your front desk, and you can take out a lot of that administrative efforts away from the check-in or the checkout process. Next slide. Mobility, I think we all know that's a thing that doesn't go away, and as I said many times before, we're all changing. The world's changing. 5, 6 years ago, very few people had a mobile phone. Now everybody has a mobile phone. From 10 years and older, sometimes even younger, they run around with a mobile phone. Guests want to be controlled. They want to do their own thing. They want to do it at their pace. They want to do it through their. That's why we have lots of airline apps, and that's why major hotel chains also have an app. It really helps if you can provide those add-on services to your guests, and choice of service is obviously key because you may think as a hotelier that you want people to come to the front desk and you want to be able to greet them there, but all you're really doing is having the guests go through an administrative process. There's very little, at least in my experience, there's very little great guest interaction at the point. But if you can change that to, for example, semi-automated check-in, whereby the guest does their own check-in on a tablet in the lobby and the host is roaming around to help that guest and change the conversation from, can I have your credit card, can I have your driver's license, to, how's things going, can I help you with anything, while the guest is doing their own check-in. I think you're creating also a very nice guest experience. Money, revenue becomes a lot easier when you do digital machines. They're never sick, they never have an off day, they always want to sell. So when you switch it on to do upselling, it will upsell, and you can bet there's a much higher take-up rate when somebody gets presented a nice offer on their smartphone at the time of checking in or the time of checking out than days ahead of time or at a very different situation. So mobility is key for both staff and both guests. So you need to make sure that whether you have a PMS that has that stuff built in or whether you have a PMS that has APIs that can connect to multiple third parties, make sure that stuff is available for years to come to you. Next slide.
All right, Yasin, before we move forward, I did want to ask you a follow-up question. So you talked about mobility and offering guests a choice in service, not just, offering them an opportunity to bypass the front desk. But if given the choice, do you think guests would opt for self-service check-in?
I think so. Actually, we've got some very nice proof on that in our database. One of the advantages of cloud databases is that we collect statistics of usability and usage of our hotels. And we've noticed that out of the hotels that offer, in addition to our PMS traditional front desk check-in, they also offer mobile check-in, or they offer a lobby self-service check-in through a tablet that is used by guests to check themselves in. We've seen hotels that do that more than 66% of the guests actually opt to choose one of the self-service solutions rather than going to the front desk. Conscious Hotels is an example of that in Holland, Amsterdam. They have basically great benefits from much greater guest efficiency. Guests love it because they see, even if you go online and you check out their guest comments, you see and love the easy check-in, love it the way it goes. So yeah, I think that people, if given the choice, are leaning more and more towards doing it themselves, potentially sometimes with some help from a staff member.
Yeah, awesome. I think that the option of giving them that choice is really what it comes down to. All right, so moving forward to our next presenter, Jonathan, who's going to speak about how mobile applications are transforming the hospitality industry and streamlining operations. Jonathan?
Yeah, hi, thank you very much, and hello everyone. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the fact and how mobile applications really are transforming the hotel operations. And on one side you've got a PMS and the front desk, and then you've got the remaining team, the staff, working on the floors. Of course, like PMSs like Stay in Touch do extend the PMS with mobile check-in, but I'm talking more today about the operational staff. I'm talking about the housekeeping, talking about the maintenance and all the remaining team. So let's go. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what people tend to forget is that to keep a room on top of operational condition needs a teamwork. Yeah, there's a really lot of people working in the hotel. So a lot of people, a lot of work, a lot of detail to take care, and a lot of stress. So when you come down to look at who is working behind the scene, and not only the front desk, because the customer meets only the front desk, you've got the inspector who dispatches the room to the attendants who are going to clean the room, or the maids or the housekeepers, depends on your country language. Then you've got the tech department, whose role is really to maintain the room in the top conditions, but also to react to any customer complaint, like the air conditioning too hot or too cold, or any issue in his shower. And then you've got the runner in more full service hotels, not every hotels, but that's doing any kind of task like bringing baggage or cleaning some common parts of the hotels. And you've got also the front office, and who is interacting with the guest, not only at check-in and check-out, but also in the stay when the guest is calling the front office for any issue, like a maintenance issue or an housekeeping issue, like I would like a pillow, I would like a late checkout, I will have an issue in my room, or what about this or that. And all this team is working behind the GM, and the GM is really usually under pressure because it's got a pressure of having high scores on TripAdvisor, and under the king guest pressure, because the guest has acquired today and a very big power over the hotel, maybe too big. And all these people is working on the floors. So let's see how they're working. Next slide, please. So what's very important to understand is that for all this team working in the different floors, they have different mindset, different constraints, and they're all moving around. So like, the attendant, the cleaners are used to be managed by the housekeeper, the inspector, and the tech department usually are very independent people working their way. And the housekeeping department has some productivity constraints when the tech department has some budget constraints, and also keep all the rooms in the best health possible. So understanding that, we understand that housekeeping is very production and time oriented, while the tech needs to react fast, plan well, and anticipate the best for the budget, to be able to buy the right assets for the hotel, or to maintain them and take the right decision at the right time. And the GM really needs to keep the budget as the best possible. The front desk needs to know all about the guests and all about the rooms, because people can ask for changing a room, like a room move, because they're not happy for a room and they would like another one. Or like the front desk needs to know if there is anyone on duty to be able to take care about any guest issue. And the inspectors, they need to track the room cleaning in progress. They need to know where their attendants are, the cleaners are, but they all move all the time. So what's happening in the hotel is that, like, the front office is something very, very fixed, but the remaining team is moving all the time. Please move, please. So yeah, so what's happening actually is that you have got one guest, but they are all in the same hotel, and the guest is really in the center of all the departments. So you've got the housekeeping, the F&B, food and beverage, the maintenance, the concierge, and the front desk, and all these departments actually, they are not working standalone. They're all working together to bring the value, to bring the service the guest has been buying by the hotel, because as you know much better than me, people are not buying a bed, but they are buying an experience. They're not buying a pillow, but they're buying something like a dream. And that's why actually when people complain, it's usually really too much, because their expectation is really too high. And any difference between the expectation and the reality can be dramatic and leads people to complain everywhere. So really, each team is working with the other one, and let's see an example of that interaction. So let's talk about tech. Let's say the tech department would needs to fix something in the room. So knowing about the occupancy, like if a room is a due out today and there is no one after these guests. So this is given by the PMS, as been said before. The PMS integration is fundamental. So being able to get that occupation will offer the tech without asking anyone on his mobile phone to be able to know if the room is really free to be fixed. Or about the housekeeping status, because if the room is dirty, then it means since that usually after the tech is taking care of the room, the housekeeping department needs to clean behind him. Being able to know the room is dirty, then it really helps a lot, because they won't have to re-clean a room that has been fixed by the maintenance department. Also, if you look at another very big challenge about mobile, is that usually you've got all the cleaning team on the floors, and when a guest checks out, what's very strange and very funny is that the housekeeping team is not aware about that. So they either have to knock on the door, or they have to call the front desk, while the information is known because the guest actually checked out. So when the guest checked out, it's very important to bring the information back to the attendant and the cleaner. So same, if there is any guest request, instead of trying to look for anyone by walkie-talkie or talking by phone or whatever, and so people need to know where the team is at real time, so they can really take care about that. Same for lost and found, and like if there is any lost and found, usually what's happening is that the guest is going to come to the front desk, but the team has not yet informed the front desk about the finding because they didn't go down yet. So being able to give that information, invaluable information, to the front desk is going to really reduce the time between the information and the reality. So the guest is going to be served much better. So that's one of those challenges, and that's why it's very important for the team to be mobile equipped, and of course completely integrated with the PMS, because all this information has to flow very easily, fluidly toward all the apps. So what do we have? We need to have a dedicated app for every staff member. So a dedicated app for the attendant. So the attendant is the cleaner. So she's going to get the list of the rooms she's going to have to clean. But look, she's going to be able to have to be informed if there is a checkout, or if there is a room move, or if there is an extended stay. So like transforming a checkout to actually a stay, and being able to report like tech issues, or being able to report lost and found. So we can see that staff is really and really we see that in the field. We've got a few thousands of people attending using it. It's very invaluable for them. Then you've got on the other side, you've got the supervisor, which is usually a tablet format, where the supervisor has to track where the attendant are and the progress of cleaning, and if there is any issue that prevents the cleaning from being done, like the D&Ds or the refuse or the cancels of the rooms. Then you've got the maintenance, who's going to get the different tickets created by the team, and they're going to be able to report. So like if there is any progress, they're going to be able to report the progress to the to the department who issued the ticket. And in the middle of that, you've got the front office, and the front office is able to see where the team is. If there is a room on the queue, is going to be very soon cleaned. And if there's any task you can send to any of the team, like a pillow or any requirement. So being able to give to each staff member a mobile app is going to give them a lot more power than just only the information they need. And next slide, please. And so really what we learn is that we improve the value, but for money. So we've been asked a lot of time that how much does this bring back to the hotel, but actually the value is improved, and then money is coming after that for sure. And being able to provide the team with a solution where they have all the information in real time is really a staff engagement, and they give them the ability to react in real time, and that encourage collaboration, and which give a much better and low stress, a much better hotel, a lower stress, and better guest satisfaction. And being able to input every operation that happened means that you're going to be able to store each operation, and that is going to give you an invaluable insight of the hotel's operation, because then that's not only subjective thinking about how the hotel is run, but actually it's going to give you very precise data, and that's something that really is very rare in the hotel industry, because we've got a lot of data about occupation and revenue, but you cannot imagine the hundreds of thousands of events that happens every year, even in a smaller hotel, and that can give input how to draw some conclusion of how the hotel is really run. So it's really an eye opener on how you spend money, and really a way to improve guest satisfaction by just leveraging existing teams. So by giving them a mobile solution, usually you give them the opportunity to do better with the same resources. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jonathan. So just to follow up a little bit, what would be the biggest beneficiary of a hotel deciding to make the change, implementing these mobile solutions, and really getting away from using pen and paper?
Yeah, I mean, so it's very different from the hotel size and from the hotel category. So some hotels are going to look for productivity, and some hotels are going to look for guest satisfaction. So for productivity is quite evident because they're going to be able to track down everything, and they're going to be able to put a figure in what's happening, because the team is going to deliver the data they need, which you can't find it with pen and paper because you won't be able to do any statistics. And for full operation hotels where they're trying to give service, that mobile collaboration is going to give them immediate response and understanding of how the hotel works.
Awesome. All right, thanks for that, Jonathan. We are going to move forward to our final presenter, Alonso Franco, who's going to speak about the impact of leveraging content to create local host profiles. Alonso?
Thank you very much, Friboni, Alejandro, Jonathan, and Josh. So today I'll be speaking on how content can help us hoteliers become better local hosts. And I like to open up by mentioning, and if we can go to the next slide, that there's been systematic work done by the hoteliers on our side on how to better position against OTAs. And so we've been battling against direct booking, getting most of it. And I think we are in a stage of a maturity in terms of that battle. So we recently just have results of 2017 efforts coming in from Hilton and the Marriotts and the big chains. And when I mean its maturity, nowadays it's about plugging in correctly, getting the integrations, and being willing and having the cash to invest on driving this traffic into your own site. What we have seen, however, is that net ADRs of brand.com, when you put the discounts, you bring more travelers in. However, at the net, there's not such a big impact, or at least that's what Calibri research recently have shown. Parallel to this, I think, and if we go to the next slide, there's a new battle that the hotelier has to be thinking, which is against Airbnb. We have been constantly thinking against Expedia or Priceline, but what can we do to fight back Airbnb? And I guess there are two main areas where we can focus our intention to fight back Airbnb. The first is being legislatively, via legislation, and that is currently being run city by city, destination by destination, and some major destinations as San Francisco or New York or some others have won legislation in favor of this. But there's also another portion that we can do beyond that effort in the legislative portion, which is how can we become better local hosts? Because there's something that Airbnb has done that consumers has been attracted to, and hotels today need to get into that same sort of marketing appeal to the traveler, not only to the millennial traveler, cross-generation traveler that are looking for neighborhood experiences, that are looking for more than a room. So with this in mind and if we can please go to the next line and one more click, is that we started researching on, is the consumer really interested in Airbnb of only because of price, or if there is consumer behavior going into the interest of these new local or neighborhood or just activities, experiences, and most specifically is those intentions or in those interests related to booking. So what we see in this graphic is that at least half of the travelers are open to destination inspiration. You see at the middle, pretty sure I know what to do, but might need some help and inspiration. And when you think about, for example, TripAdvisor, when you are booking as a user, you do not get any of this inspiration around the hotel. It's all about information inside the hotel. And we can move to the next slide. But there are moments where the traveler have an answer in terms of reviews and is wondering what's around. So in this exploration, they are paying attention to what is the historical or museums that are nearby the hotel, or what is the security of that specific neighborhood, or if there's any off the beaten path or recommendation from locals that make that corner of that neighborhood a hyper local place. All of this information, it's in consumer behavior right before booking, and we are seeing Expedia Media's solution research from this year. We can go to the next piece of data on this same concept. This is Sullivan, New York, a marketing agency, which created this research in which they analyzed the consumer path of the traveler before booking. So they found many elements that go beyond OTAs, I mean beyond pricing, that goes into local attractions and sightseeing. And this is when booking a hotel, where the main decision-making criteria, beyond location, it's going to local experience, neighborhood experience, explore area maps. And again, all of these OTAs, a fight that we as hoteliers has been forced to battle, it's all going into price. There's no way for us hoteliers to differentiate as hosts in the same, let's say, rules that Airbnb has provided to travelers. When you book in Airbnb, you get to experience or get closer to a humanized accommodation, even if you don't get to see anyone, which makes no sense, because us as hoteliers, we have concierge, we have receptionists, we actually have hosts willing to help these travelers out. So how come they have positioned as better local hosts when the travelers are in the search of this information? And if we go beyond this, this slide, one more click. So some suggestions of how a hotel can leverage on content, producing a host profile, we are figuring out that travel writers, bloggers, basing in the same Expedia media solution or experts, information on the as intermediaries from the hotel, even if it still includes the local knowledge of the hotel, that these intermediaries, travel writers, bloggers, can help us out because consumers appreciate blog articles about travel destination, even within their decision-making criteria. And if we go again to the next, and this is the final in terms of data, but this one is related to price, and that makes it very interesting because if we think about the user on an inspirational level, we are afraid that he's not going to get close, or how are we going to get him or her to convert into a booking. But what this slide says that when prioritizing activities and unique experiences, what is driving traveler decision, you see that the top three are not price. This is again Expedia Media Solutions research. These activities or experiences or even cultural or historical experiences. So how can us, the hotels, differentiate on top of price? So I have a solution, and let me just show the next slide, please. And that first of all, we hoteliers, we have already been trying to sell room with experiences, maybe for a decade. You might probably remember or think of those moments where the hotelier have come in and said, we sell room with experiences, and how do we do it, you know? And then marketing team works with concierge, these personalized recommendations you are seeing in here, but is this really getting in the hands of the users? And even if we have not done it, how do we get the best of this advice? And let's go to the next slide, please. This is my recommendation on how each of you hotels, if you dedicate to collect the know-how that sits in your hotel, sits in your concierge, in the marketing manager, or even in the owner or as random receptionist, you interview these local experts within your company. And we're here in the left. First, organize your voice as a local host. And we have examples of a questionnaire we can share after this on how to interview your own staff so that you can organize it on a digital way with maps, routes, getting the technologies that are out there. And then the next one is to share it with guests. Because now that it's digital, if you go to the right of the column, you will see that we have different ways you can get this content of know-how. You can install it in your website, automatize it in emails, at booking or at check-in, train your staff on favorites, get your recommendations delivered from front desk, or get this content plugging into mobile apps, in-room tablets. But let me just show the next slide. In a way, we need to think of a next generation, and just to wrap it up, of getting all this content that some hotels have. And this is my own hotel. The Red House is the hotel that I operate. I'm an entrepreneur there. And the orange line is my recommended walk. We can go take all of that digitally. And we go to the next slide. There are many tools, and starting from Google being one of them, where you can organize all the way to different alternatives, where today you can put all of your piece of advice, but it all starts from getting the heart of your team and organize it, look out there for alternatives, and find a way to be a better local host, to learn what we have to learn from these new competitors, Airbnb, but at the same time start beating them at their own rules of being a wonderful host. So now open it up to any question or comment that anyone might have, or everyone, please.
Alonzo, I actually do. I thought it was very interesting how you talked about really leveraging all of the information that your employees have, interviewing them and getting their take about what best, what the hotel has to offer, what the surroundings and the neighborhood has to offer, and then putting that on the website. But you can go a step further. What are some digital tools out there to organize those favors and experiences around each hotel?
Okay, so there are many, and it started all from Google. I've seen hoteliers marking in Google their hotel and then marking nearby spots, all the way to what we are doing in Arribedo, which we invite hotels to publish a neighborhood guide. There are intermediate players on message apps that are giving a solution for guests to question. Of course, the hotel then has to go in and respond to each of the comments. But I think preempting the entire advice, thinking it through, and delivering it to guests in a systematized way, you can organize it. As I said, Google is one, and we are bringing Arribedo to market too.
Thank you, Alonso. And with that said, that wraps up our presentation from our presenters today. I'm going to turn it over to the audience now. I've got a couple questions here, and I, do welcome more questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to just put it in there in the chat box, and I'll get to those questions as soon as possible. First one is for you, Yas. If given the so what are the most important elements for cloud PMS?
I think the most important elements are that it is definitely on a regular basis updating its features. Probably should happen within 2 to 3 weeks at the most. It should have open integration to multiple vendors out there. Some out of the box, and some of them probably can be added. It should be stable. It should be easy to use. I think in today's business, we all have an iPad, we all have an iPhone. We don't get trained on those devices. We just use whatever we download on there, and the same should be for business applications such as a PMS. So I think those 3 things: ease of use, APIs, and good features are the key components.
Awesome. And this one is for you, Alonso. How much can a neighborhood guide help hotels in travel activity related SEO keyword optimization or positioning?
Great. So all of these, it's truly local content that travelers are searching. So it's not only how many people you can attract, but also those who you attract are kind of ready to go and engage into that content because they are precisely looking for those attractions. So this content is actually done with SEO in mind in order to attract travelers. That should be the core of the value of the content.
Right, and this one is for you, Jonathan. You talked earlier about really trying to equip your staff and employees with mobile applications to better streamline the guest experience and operation. So what can a mobile application do their phone can't?
You mean like WhatsApp or something like that?
Yes.
So clearly, and what we've seen on the field is that WhatsApp is unorganized. I mean, it works very well for the last minute, but then when you have to go back to the past, which usually happens a lot, then you have nowhere to find something that was in the past. So you have no way to check something and then to get understanding of what's happening. So WhatsApp is great, and messaging are great for immediate stuff, but then it becomes a mess after a few days.
Awesome. And so we talked a lot in this webinar really about how to better focus your 2018 initiatives with some of the trends that are out there. The PMS being the hub of the operations, making sure that it has a well-structured API so that you are connecting to all of the core systems in your hotel. Then you have, of course, operational tools and solutions that are going to help streamline housekeeping as well as other front desk staff. And then with Arribedo, you guys talked about how to better promote all of the experiences that your hotel actually has so that you get that you're taking the advantage, or you're taking back what's rightfully hotels from Airbnb solutions. So I want to really ask or address this to the presenters. What other solutions out there or tech trends do you see maybe emerging in the first half of 2018 that maybe our attendees can look forward to?
That's a good question. I think there is ongoing. I think there is still a lot of work to do as it relates to mobility, especially around check-in, check-out. I think many hotels don't offer that yet in the right way. Many hotels cannot finish it off all the way down to the key. There's obviously already for years now ability to have a mobile key, but it requires a significant infrastructure change on the hotel side to actually fully implement that. I'm not sure that there's a lot of new stuff coming next year. I think that what we have today with the cloud APIs and mobility can further mature and can become better, and we as vendors can do a better job there and continue to do so. So I think definitely from my organization, from my company, we're going to put heavy focus on further maturing the mobility, the self-service components, add to that, and make the experience of the hotel guests in such a way that they can, if they want to be in full self-control, or if they want to have conversations with hotel staff at any given time.
I think that's a good point. There may not be much new that comes on the scene, but there will be. We will see some of these trends already in the market really reassert themselves and stick around. So with that said, what is going to separate the winners from the losers? Alonso, you want to take this one?
Yes. So I think nowadays what really want to separate the winners and the losers are UX, because when I think about the traveling user, he has so many alternatives out there that for them to really grasp into one, it has to be aligned with top user experiences that they are preferring in comparable industries at least. And many times this is overlooked on the engineering side, bringing technologies that are not necessarily fully embraced for the user. So even going into the previous question, for me, 2018 means on thinking on the traveling user. The more the traveling user is engaged and deliver on the promise of our products and the promise of our hotels in their day-to-day stays, the more as the hoteliers will be delivering a good service and attracting more guests.
All right. Do you want to, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, we're all working in a technology area, but hotels have a very small adoption curve because usually it means for them, adopting those open API solutions like Stay in Touch. So we've seen that there is a lot of interest, but it takes a lot of time actually for the hotel to jump. And because moving to new technology is usually it's not a question of price, but it's a question of what I'm going to be able to do with my data, and how I'm going to train my team, and what impact is that going to have for my guests. So I really see next year being like a consolidation year, like all those initiatives we're talking about for years. I think are going to land next year and be more adopted. We at least for room checking, we've seen a huge acceleration from, let's say, yeah, we're interested, it's nice, to yeah, let's go and let's jump into it. So yeah, that's the way I see next year.
Awesome. All right, that wraps up this webinar. I want to thank our presenters once again for giving us their insight, and especially thank the audience for sticking with us the whole way through. So we will be sending the webinar recording and assets out within 24 hours. So if you have any additional questions or comments, please feel free to send those over to info@stayintouch.com, and we will get those answered to you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.